And their fur is so soft, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So
All right.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was funny. Did you get the whole Faith, Hope, and Charity? Or do we have to do it again?
Yep, I got it. Yep. So let's see. Okay. So then continue of how you went from working in the personnel office.
Yeah, by then I had quite a lot of experience, and you don't want to start your career in Hollywood or in New York because you're inexperienced. People are going to see you, and that's goodbye. So I went way up into the backwoods, into Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I started my first show, which was Glendora and Her Picture Party. And it was, I wanted to start out small, so it was a kids' show. And I had 6 pictures taken from a little tiny incident from one very famous American, George Washington or whatever. And I showed the pictures to the children, one child at a time. And he told me the story that he saw in the pictures. And there were 2 children on the show. The second one came in later. And whichever child got closer to the truth won the prize. That was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, on top of Mount Greylock.
And why do you think, why else did you decide to do a children's show at first, besides it being something you said was simple?
Yeah, that's it, and start out small, right? And
literally.
Yeah, and it was just such a cute idea, and it's a nice thing to do a children's show. And that in those days, children's shows were very plentiful.
And how did people respond to that show?
Oh, very well. It was very loved. It was the children who made it.
And then from the children's show, then how did your show transform?
Well, the thing about the Pittsfield show, on a UHF, you don't know what UHF, you do?
Yes,
Ultra high frequency?
Yes.
Did you read about that in school?
Well, we had a TV with the UHF and then the other UHF and
VHF?
Yeah,
the very
VHF.
high frequency was from channel 1 up to channel 13. And then UHF was channel 14, and this was way up on channel 74.
Oh, wow.
People couldn't get the signal half the time, and if 2 or 3 snowflakes fell in Pittsfield, which was very often, you didn't get the signal. It was the early days of television, and let me tell you folks, everything those days was live. You made a mistake, and everybody saw it. So that's why A Chat with Glendora has that live quality. No matter what happens, you look at people straight in the eye and you tell them that it happened. And so enough people saw later on, when I was on the TV for General Electric, WRGB Schenectady, enough people saw that show to fill Yankee Stadium. So if you made a mistake, you just leveled with the folks. Answer your question? What was that question?
How did you go from the children's show into?
Oh, okay. That was the experience that I was looking for. Up in the backwoods, when you made a mistake, okay, a few people saw it. But then the show moved from 15 minutes a week to 45 minutes a day in Manchester, New Hampshire, on Channel 9, WMUR, named after Governor Murphy, who owned that station. And that was a 45-minute live kids show with kids all over the place. And it was the SS Glendora. It was a ship. And I dressed up the kids in little sailors' costumes. And they were so cute. They would come in and they'd say, "This is Chief so-and-so reporting from Concord, New Hampshire. This is Chief Mate so-and-so reporting from Nashua, New Hampshire." And one little boy came up in, and he was so little that I couldn't have a hat that small, and the hat that he had came down and bent his ears over. And he said, "This is Chief Mate. Where am I from?"
Do you have any of this on tape anymore?
There was no tape.
It was all live and no tape. No
tape and no film. Everything was live. Tape did not come in, folks, until 1962. Everything up until then was live. They had a thing you called the kinescope, which was nothing more than putting a film camera in front of a TV set and making a film of it. And it was terrible, as you well could imagine. But they had a kinescope. That was it.
And you don't know if any of that was ever recorded, like with a kinescope?
Not the Manchester show, but after the Manchester, New Hampshire show, Milton Bradley became the sponsor of the SS Glendora. Now, Milton Bradley made
toys.
Ah, right, and Mary, what was it called? Magic Mary doll. Remember, it was a magnet, and you put her clothes on by. You remember that?
I know what you're talking about.
And go to the head of the class. Remember those?
I had that game too.
Yes. And so they, being children's show, an advertising agency in Hartford, Connecticut, picked it up, and Milton Bradley said they would sponsor it. And this is kind of an interesting thing, because the people who were behind Captain Kangaroo got in and tried to talk Milton Bradley out of dropping me and sponsoring Captain Kangaroo. That was not nice, was it? Well, somehow or other, this advertising agency in Hartford prevailed, and they went through it. And they put the show on WBZ-TV, Boston, the Westinghouse station, which dominated all of New England. This was big-time stuff out on Soldier Field Road, and it was out there. And I just got a call. You know, I still get calls from those people. You know what year we're talking about? 1954.
Wow.
And I still get calls. I got a call from a woman just last month. And she said, I want to talk to Glendora Folsom, who had the SS Glendora on WBC TV Channel 4, Boston. Isn't that something after all that year? That woman must be 72 years old by now.
And what did she want? She just wanted to know.
She wanted to talk to me.
So the show was SS Glendora, and it was on, what's the name of the station again?
The first one was Mount Greylock in Pittsfield. The second one was Channel 9, WMUR in Manchester, New Hampshire. And the third one was WBZ TV, Channel 4, Westinghouse. WBZ, yeah. WBZ TV, Channel 4, Boston.
I wonder if it still would have copies of it.
Well, there still was no tape, honey, 1954.
Oh,
but there was a kinescope made of it.
Okay.
And you know what they charged for that kinescope?
Oh,
$500.
gosh.
Just to put a camera in front of a TV screen and take it.
Wow.
I saw it. It was terrible. It was awful. We could go chronologically, but I could tell you something very funny about videotape when it came in.
Okay.
WRGB, which is owned and operated by General Electric, huge General Electric, who now owns RCA and NBC. At that time, RCA and General Electric were head-to-head. Anyway, in 1962, all right, from Milton Bradley, I went to work for another electric company, and there was a show on the TV named the Electric Company. It was a kids show, and public broadcasting. Anyway, I went to work for another electric company, General Electric. And this was 45 minutes a day, and it was a kids show, and it was still the SS Glendora. And they got tape in 1962, and they did not know how to use it. And folks, the tape was 2 inches. You know the tape that we're using today, okay, it's but this tape was 2 inches. And an hour spool weighed about 60 pounds. It was aluminum, fortunately, the spool. So they didn't know really how to use it. And the tape machine, I remember when it came in on a derrick, the tape machine was this wide, it's out of the range of this camera, and it's this deep, and it was this tall. And look what we got today. And they decided to tape the SS Glendora, and they didn't know how to do it, and they had to keep doing it over and over again. And by the time they finished taping it, the show went on, it would have gone on the air live in 15 minutes. However, they went through with it, and I was through at 5:45. The show was due on the air 6 to 6:45, and I'm going down the street walking home, and a woman opens the door, and there's kids playing out on the sidewalk, and the mother says, "Glendora's on!" And the kid says, "I don't want to watch that stupid show." He turned around, and I'm walking down the street.
And then what did you say?
Nothing. Things had gone bad enough as it was. And another interesting story that came out of the taping days was that there was a show just before mine, Freddie Freihofer Show, which is a Troy, New York company, Freihofer Bakery.
Yeah.
And they sponsored the Freddie Freihofer Show. And it was on just before mine, and it was live, and it had about 20 kids on it. And this little boy was going to be on the Freddie Freihofer Show because it was his birthday. And he came running up to Mae Dunn, the receptionist at WRGB TV, and he said, and they had taped my show the night before, and I went home to Buffalo. I was already on my way. And the little boy came up, he says, "Can I see Glendora?" And Mae Dunn said, "I'm sorry, Glendora isn't live." And that little boy, he thought I died.
Oh.
That's another funny thing that came from tape.
Oh. So what was the difference in the making of the show? What's the difference between the live and the tape? Like, did you, or philosophical wise, did you make the show differently when it was live versus when it was tape?
No, you see, it was live up in Pittsfield, it was live up in Manchester, it was live in Boston, it was live up in Troy, Schenectady, Albany. It was live. So to me, television has always been live. Whether it's taped or whether it's live, it's just the way it is now.
So what is the theme of your show now?
I chat with Glendora. Okay, we have to tell them how we went from broadcast. I started my business, Glendora TV Ads, in 1976. And one of my first sponsors was VeggieLinks, because I am a vegetarian, and I was all for people being vegetarian because I hate cruelty. Cruelty to animals, cruelty to people. I hate cruelty. And so here was a vegetarian hot dog that didn't mean the murder of animals. And they gave me $10,000 to get the VeggieLinks into the A&P and the First National in the greater New York metropolitan market, and I succeeded in that through the television. Television was magic. And so my career up until then was all television. And then around about 1987, this thing came up called cable TV. And broadcast TV had never been commensurate with the public's airwaves. The airwaves belong to the public. And the FCC, through its greed and avarice and acquisitiveness, let the broadcast corporations, you, Mr. Paley, you, Governor, who was it, General Sarnoff, you took the public's airways and you made billions on it. And that was not right. And so cable TV came along with a multiple channel capacity. Thank God that the Congress of the United States realized that these airwaves do belong to the public. And so they ruled around about 1968, they ruled that the cable operators had to relegate a channel to the public. And along came that simultaneously was also a channel for the schools and also a channel for the local governments. That was the beginning of PEG, Public Educational and Government Access. It was considerably later that the Cable Act of 1984 came out, laying down certain rules. And one of those rules was, that's Daisy Dean, she wants to come back and see me. And Jane made her go on. Oh, I'm sorry, Daisy. I'll come and see you later. As laying down rules for public, educational, and government access. One of these rules, and by the way, that's codified as the United States Code, Title 47, the health and the welfare of the public. Title 47, the United States Code, Section 521 et sequitur, and one of the, and this was nice, Congress called us an electronic soapbox. Do you realize the significance of that? Congress was calling us a public forum. Public forums have a lot of power. Free speech, sidewalk free speech, and public forum in a park get the utmost protection because we are Americans. The First Amendment. So this was great. And I was strictly a broadcast person. I looked down on cable TV. You know, is this going to amount to anything? But I said, you better go over there and get your foot in the door in case it does amount to anything. And they were talking pie in the sky, two-way transmission, you know, and all these things. So I did, and that's what started the chat with Glendora, and that started in Buffalo, New York. In those days, you had little tiny entrepreneurs started up their cable companies. The technology moved so fast they couldn't keep up with the money, and they lost everything that they put in it because people with money came and bought them out. And a very famous name in cable TV is Peter Gilbert, and he bought out this little system in Buffalo. And I was the program director. I was like what you are, an access coordinator.
And what was that job like?
Helping the public get their programs onto TV through live production. There was no tape. This was all live.
And you were doing your show at the same time as you were working
there. Yes.
And what is the theme of A Chat with Glendora?
Well, let's go back and say how that show started in 1972. Now, your broadcast career is 54 years, but cable career started in 1972, and it's now 2007, so that's the 35 years of being in cable. And I think that was one of the thrusts that you wanted to put out, being in public access so long.
Could we move the mic a little so it's not under her voice?
Oh. How long has it been doing that?
For like little since you've been touching her.
Oh.
Pull it up. It's my heart. You want that unbuttoned?
I think that's okay.
You want it up higher?
And try not to hold yourself over here or touch yourself.
All righty.
No. Sorry. Try. Try your best.
Yeah, so if you could talk about what it has been, how it's changed, and what it's been like, and all that.
Well, I wanted to tell you that in the Cable Act of 1984 was very, very specific in the cable operators. They made the cable operators do it. You know, they made them do it. It's a mandate. And the cable operators didn't want to do it, of course. And one of the things that they gave the cable operators as an easement was that the public access producer indemnifies the cable operator. You can't sue the cable operator for anything that Glendora says on TV. You can only sue Glendora. Wonderful. Because Glendora doesn't have any money, nobody's going to sue. So that's one big thing about it. Then it made a thing called leased access, where the public goes in and actually pays for the cable time. video time, the TV time. But that is not public access, because in public access, no money is allowed to exchange. You can't make money off of public access. Okay, then we had a very interesting phenomenon come in just about 15 years ago. Up until 15 years ago, all of the public access was through the cable operator. And how this started, and you could answer that to me, if I were interviewing you, I would ask you to answer this question for me. How did it start that corporations for public access, how did they start up? And why did they start up? Like Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Up until 15 years ago, a chat with Glendora was on Time. No Time Warner, no Time Warner AOL. It was Time Incorporated. Life Magazine, Time Magazine, and what was the financial magazine? What was that called? Those were the three, started by the Booths. And then they got into television, which was very smart. And Charles Dolan, who was the founder of Big Cablevision, started up a cable company called Sterling Manhattan Cable TV. And the franchise from the city of New York for Manhattan, it went from 78th Street North, isn't this funny? And that went to Teleprompter. Teleprompter's CEO ended up in jail. And then did I say 78th Street? I should have said 79th Street. And 79th Street, right down the middle of the street, south of, all went to Sterling Manhattan Cable TV. Charles Dolan, give him credit, God bless him. He had to wire Manhattan, and it all had to be underground. Can you imagine a more formidable job than that? Well, he did, and he spent all of his money, and then he borrowed money, and the whole thing crashed. It just crashed. And for a very small amount of money and a desperate amount of money, Time bought 79th Street and South, down to the end of the island. There were two cable companies. And that was was that Channel 23? Well, anyway.
I think there was a studio on 23rd Street.
Well, that was it. That was it. That was Manhattan Cable TV, MCTV. And it was run by Time. And it was sort of a dingy old, rather unassuming building. It was about 10 or 13 stories. And then all of a sudden, and I was on there since 1972. And this is interesting because you gave me a certificate of appreciation and contribution for 15 years being on your Manhattan your Manhattan Neighborhood Network. But I never got a certificate for the 17 years that I was on Manhattan Public Access before Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And by the way, you people have done a superb job. You really have the spirit of public access.
Well, we definitely wouldn't be here without all of the producers. So I'm always trying to find ways to be more and more supportive.
Oh, you are so good, you people. And you particularly, Vicki. You have a warmth and an enthusiasm and an excitement about public access that is spectacular. All right, and so, I was still in broadcast TV, as I said. I was making quite a lot of money in broadcast TV with my Glendora commercials, TV commercials. And so I said in 1972, you better look into this cable TV thing. You better look into public access. And the first TV station was the Buffalo one. And then the next one was Manhattan. Wait a second. Then I became a public access coordinator in the state of Maine, Bangor, Maine. And it was not far from the University of Maine at Orono. In fact, our head end was at Orono. And I walked in with my Sony Portapack. And God bless Sony. That just made public access. That was the first time, you know, before that, if you ever saw a broadcast mobile unit, why, it was bigger than a Greyhound bus. The cameras were this big. And so they had to have that. But with a little Sony Portapack, one person could go out. Now, it wasn't a camcorder. It was a camera that weighed 8 pounds. And the recorder, battery-operated recorder that weighed, I think, 10 pounds. And you had to carry your lights because in those days the cameras couldn't pick up. They couldn't see much. They had pretty bad vision compared to today. And I could go out and cover girls basketball that nobody else had ever covered, girls soccer. Why, these were unheard of things. And I would go out, I'd come back to my little TV studio, and I would plug in my Sony Portapack into the Channel 12 module, and I would play the program that I just videotaped on half-inch reel-to-reel.
So cool. And how long were you producing before you got the Portapack? How many years? What year did the Portapack come out?
1972.
Oh, okay. So that was a while.
Yes.
So did you find, so you say you would go out and you would film girls soccer and things like that. Did you find that that was lacking in?
Oh, yeah.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, well, they would do men's basketball because that was so highly competitive. And, but who ever heard of doing girls basketball?
So you were a pioneer in a sense.
Yeah, and up in Bangor, Maine, I was covering Husson. There's a college up there. And I was up there in videotaping it. And this woman in front of me was saying, "That a way to go, Husson. Go, Husson. Hurry up, Husson. Get him, get him, get him, Husson." And then she said to the woman next to her, "Whom are they playing tonight?"
And you have that all on
Well,
Portapack.
I did, but I had to erase it in those days. There wasn't any money to have archives because tape was expensive. And of course, it was something to go out and set up the lights and do all those things. And then the next place after Bangor, Maine was what they call the valley, Naugatuck Valley of Connecticut. It goes from Waterbury down to Bridgeport as the Naugatuck River. It's where Peter Paul was, and United U.S. Rubber was there. Of course, they're all moved out now. And that was the thing. And I sold myself as a package, folks. I came in with my Sony Portapack, and I was a whole public access operation. I went out and did the videotaping. I came in and plugged it into the Channel 12 or whatever, Channel 10 module, and I played it. And I sold myself for $300 a week to George Reynolds. And the cable company was in Seymour, Ansonia, Shell, and Derby. And I went and covered all those towns, all by myself. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Were other people doing the same thing?
No. No, this was unique. This was unique in the true word, meaning of the word. There was only one doing it. And then the next place I sold that was up to Queensbury, which is Glens Falls, north of Troy. Okay. Glens Falls, and I sold that. It's an interesting thing. That was South Glens Falls, and Queensbury, and Fort Edward, and Fort Anne. And guess who owned the franchise for the city of Glens Falls? Ed Sullivan. He knew that broadcast might be changing very, very much. And he wanted to have his foot in the door. He bought the cable system in Glens Falls.
So back then there was still that corporate, I don't want to say greed necessarily, but some innovative businessmen seeing that there
I think the word we're looking for is entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And cable operators were entrepreneurs until the corporation said, "Oh, hey, they got something here. Let's buy them out." Now, where were we?
Using your Portapack. You were
Yeah,
in
that's a Portapack.
Maine, I think about to leave Maine.
Well, from Maine, I went to the Naugatuck Valley in Connecticut. From there, I went up to Glens Falls.
That's right.
Seems like there was some place. Oh, those were the 4 places: Buffalo, Bangor, Seymour, Connecticut, and Glens Falls.
And your show would just cover current events or just whatever you...
No, it just covered, it was features and sports, features and sports. And it was called the A Chat with Glendora.
And why did you focus on sports at first?
Well, they're interesting to watch. I mean, they make good video. And a lot of events. So those jokes that you were, and I would go and tell jokes to these little small groups that met, and you would see a lot of that on the 4000th show. It went way back to 1972. Then tape came in. Now you had a record. I didn't tell you the funny thing about the SS Glendora, which was all broadcast, that I told the kids that the SS stood for steamship, and they said, no, it stands for stupid show.
You would tell them that?
No, they told me that. I said it stands for steamship. No, it stands for stupid show. Oh, and you want to hear an interesting thing? Is that when the show was on WRGB Schenectady, Channel 6, it was the SS Glendora. Raise your chest, and on the show, I would pick out 6 postcards who would be on the show in a couple of weeks. Well, this one little boy, Jimmy Talbot, 10 years old, he sent in 100 postcards. So he would be sure to be picked. And he was fascinated by television. The cameras, the lights, the sets, the flats, the microphones. He was so fascinated by that. And you know something? That became his career. And when he graduated from high school, Niskayuna, he went to Northwestern, and he didn't choose television, he chose film. And today he's out in Beverly Hills as a filmmaker. And he came to see me last summer.
Oh, really?
And he's 62 years old now.
Wow.
And you know something? On a kid show, they never forget. It goes through, I get calls all the time from people who remember the show when they were just little kids.
And what did they say when they call?
Oh, they just want to talk to me, and they want to reminisce, and they want to think about the good old days. And I get so many calls like that. Go out in the street every day. I'm surprised nobody's done it when I was out with you this morning.
Interesting. So let's see. Could you talk a little bit about what the cablevision protest story?
Yeah, I will. I just remembered.
Was that part of your?
Yes, I'd be happy to. About the Jimmy Talbot days, one of my sponsors was Junior Bootery. They had a kids show, kids shoes, and the owner was giving away free lollipops. You know, when we started out in television, you had a boom mic, and a guy stood on a boom, and he wherever you went. Well, you know, that left itself wide open to a lot of mistakes, right? And then RCA came out with a microphone that was this big, and you could hold it in your hand. Now, wired for sound I am now, but that was really wired for sound, and you tripped over the cord, of course, all the time. But then they came out with a lavalier mic that was this big, and it went around your neck, so that you were hands-free. You had television and you were hands-free. So I was around, and he says, all the time Glendora's doing my commercial, I want her licking one of my lollipops. And so I was around talking to the kids, and I had this lavalier microphone, and I had to take it off my neck to put it up to the children, and I was licking the lollipops, and the kid was just about to knock down the whole ship flat, and so I was giving him the evil eye. And then when I came back, instead of putting the lollipop in my mouth, I put the lavalier in my mouth. And it hit my gold bridge, and you can imagine what that sounded like in 63,000 homes all over the Capital District, including Troy. Now, about the cablevision thing. Well, where did that start? In 1993, I started on, Charles Dolan had to flee Manhattan. He ran out of money. But he made it big in Long Island, Nassau County. And that, it was really big. It was like 420,000 subscribers. How many subscribers did they have in Manhattan now? Was it about 900,000?
It's 540 Time Warner and about 50,000 RCN.
Oh.
So close to 600,000 that are paying, have a bill every month. But a lot of people do get cable illegally. So the only ones documented, are about almost 600,000.
Well, you see, that's a lot of people. And so it was on, the Chat with Glendora was on in Nassau County. It was cablecast from Hicksville. And I went over there and I was telling about Scott Lord. I had contracted with him to do ads for his lawn sprinkling business. And this was broadcast, of course. I put him on the CBS Morning News and made his commercial and had the airtime already. And then his check bounced. And the check was something like for $5,000. And it bounced. And so in the recovery of that, I kept after him, and finally to get rid of me, he went into bankruptcy, and I fought that through. And this was one of the very rare cases where the bankrupt had to pay 83 cents on the dollar. Usually they get away with 10 cents on the dollar, but he had to pay 83 cents. And so I was reporting about that on cable TV in Nassau County, and that the Consumer Affairs Department of the County of Nassau and the county executive, Gulata, and James Picken, the Consumer Affairs Commissioner, were allowing Scott Lord to operate in the County of Nassau without a Consumer Affairs license. And this was widely watched, and I believe on information and belief that Mr. Gulata, the supervisor, and Mr. Picken, the commissioner, got to Mr. Dolan, the owner of Cablevision, and told them to get Glendora off the TV. Well, Cablevision is well known for its complete disregard of the law. They will do anything they want. They're Cablevision. They got money. And if you don't agree with they want, how much you want to shut up. And so that on Armistice Day, folks, now this is November the 25th. Armistice Day, Veterans Day, was November 11th, which is about 2 weeks ago. 14 years ago. Thomas Garger called me up and said, we're not going to cablecast a Chat with Glendora anymore. Why? Well, we don't think public access is a place to talk about a personal lawsuit. At that time, O.J. Simpson was on every TV station in the whole country. What did Mr. Garger do? He broke a law that's pretty important in public access. No editorial control. That law I told you about, Title 47 U.S. Code 521 et sequitur, 531E says no cable operator shall exercise editorial control over public access. Great law, great American law. Fortunately, I audio taped it. And I have never been to court before in my life. And so I went to the law libraries and I read the law. And I found that law. That's all you need for a lawsuit. They got to break a law. And I sued Cablevision, and I sued Mr. Dolan, and I sued all of his vice presidents, and I sued Thomas Garger. And it became a very important lawsuit. And it was dismissed summarily by Charles Bryant, a federal judge in the Southern District of New York. And I appealed it. And this was a landmark case. It went into the appeals court in Manhattan, and they ruled against Cablevision. Now, courts don't very often rule against a corporation and in favor of an individual. Excuse me. They don't usually do that. The poor injured individual usually loses, but in this case, big money Cablevision lost, even though they tried to buy out everybody. But they won, and this is interesting. They didn't trust their own lawyer to argue the case in the Second Circuit, so they brought in the former commissioner of the FCC, Mark Fowler, and he argued the case, and he got nowhere. And within a year, they ruled that it also went into the Supreme Court, Westchester County, state of New York, and that judge ruled that plaintiff, now this is beautiful words for you, Vicki, plaintiff has a statutory right to be on TV and must be returned to TV. And they did it immediately. They asked for 30 days, but they did, and they've never taken it off since in Long Island. But boy, did they try to get even taking it off in Westchester. Yonkers, they took it off. Yorktown, they took it off. New Rochelle, they took it off. And that's how they tried to get even. But every time they took the show off of TV, I would sue them, take them to court. So I think that's as long and short of that.
So how long did that case go on for? How many?
Oh, that one was over in a couple years. But then they started upsetting the Westchester ones. And so every time they upset a Westchester franchise, I would go to court and sue them. So they've gone on. I started suing Cablevision at a very early age. And that's 1983. And today, what's that, 25 years? 2007.
Mm-hmm. So was there a point where you would protest outside of Cablevision?
Oh, yes.
Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Out at the Woodbury headquarters in Nassau County, would go up and down. I remember one day it was on a January 6th, and it was so cold and snow piled high. Myself and a couple of other people walked up and down. The dichotomy about Cablevision is that Charles Dolan and I, he let me interview him. He came all the way from Long Island to Manhattan. He owned a sales to buy airtime on Cablevision. And he let me interview him. And he and I became very close friends, and I would call him up every month, and we would talk about, you know, this man's a billionaire. Many times. Why not? He puts all the money in his pocket, and the subscribers don't get it, and the shareholders don't get it. He and his son and his rest of his sons get it. Why wouldn't he be a billionaire? But he and I were quite close and got along very well. They had a lot of good laughs together. One time I called him up and I said, Charles, what are you doing today? And he says, I'm cleaning the attic. A billionaire was cleaning the attic. I said, Charles, you know how you do that? You make one pile that you're going to give away, one pile you're going to throw away, and one pile you're going to keep. Good idea. And I went to Cablevision annual meetings and really made quite a difference there. But that's not right. They were not going to honor public access, and public access was given to us. I say that public access is an allodium. Public access is given to the public access producer without any duty to anybody. There's no duty, there's no service owed. You're not due or owned by anybody.
So what would you be doing if public access didn't exist?
Boy, Vicki, I have to reserve on that one and think a long time. It would be television. By the way, I've moved away from broadcast TV, although I'm still in it, but it's all now public access. And I think part of your story is that I have challenged people who have fought against public access. It's cost me all of my money. It's cost me so much time and so many ergs of energy. But I have stood up for public access in the courts. And they lie and cheat in the courts. And the courts are totally hopeless and totally corrupt and depraved. They'll always go with a corporation. But I keep coming back with one lawsuit after another.
So are you currently suing Cablevision anywhere?
Yep, yep, oh yeah. Let's see, how many places do I have Cablevision? I have them in the federal court in Syracuse and Albany. I've had them in White Plains. I've had them in Yonkers. I've had them in Rye. I've had them in Phillipstown. That's Putnam County. I had them in Dutchess County. And then a branch of this story is that Cablevision came up with a lottery as far as dispensing time slots to public access producers. And when they first came up with it, and somebody told me about it, and I got the announcement in the mail, I just softly said, a lottery is against the law in the state of New York. Cablevision never used the word lottery again. They ended up calling it a, oh, I wish I had that phrase. My friends could all tell you, a super-cooled random process. A super-cooled random computer process for signing out. But they never had any proof of that. And Cablevision has always taken very good care of me in Nassau County. 10 p.m. Friday nights. They didn't touch that for years. And then finally, under their random super cool process, selection process, they dropped it down to 4 o'clock in the afternoon from 10 o'clock at night. And that, you know what that did, folks? That reduced the audience by 4/5. 5 times as many people watch 10 p.m. as they do 4 p.m. in the afternoon. It's reasonable. And so I sued them. I sued them badly. And what happened? Something happened. They dropped the time, and I said, don't you ever change my time from 10 p.m. Friday nights again, because another law of public access is first come, first serve. I was there first. You don't give my time slot to a second serve, a second come. And in their mix-ups, they put it down to 9 p.m. And I said, oh, that's even better. I withdraw all my 10 p.m. demands. But don't you ever change it from 9 p.m. again. And they haven't. They got sued badly on that, and they haven't.
And that's cable. That's not a public access TV station like M&N. That's the actual cable.
That's not a corporate. What you're talking, you are a private corporation.
Right.
They are a cable operator. However, on the island, Amagansett, Montauk, and East Hampton are run by a like Vicky's, like Manhattan neighborhood name, and run by a private corporation. And also Great Neck has one. But the rest are all Cablevision. I would say they have about 700,000 or 800,000 subscribers, but that's nothing when you look at Queens and Brooklyn. They have about, they must have 1 million, don't you think? Queens and Brooklyn are bigger than Manhattan, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure what their subscriptions are.
But I think it's
But
around
they're
1 million.
larger boroughs. So.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about the thing that's going on in public access now, which is DVD?
Sure. Yeah, if you could talk about that and then how you've been keeping up with the technology and what that's meant for you, and maybe talk about YouTube and all that.
See, it's been VHS. As I started out with Vicky, it was half-inch reel-to-reel. Can you imagine that? And then Sony tried to come in with Betamax and steal the market. Fortunately, Sony lost. VHS won. Much easier format. VHS won, and it's been VHS, what would you say, 15 years?
Yeah.
20 years? Well, all of a sudden, DVD, well, I have spent half of my life going from one format to another. And she's from Hawaii, and it's about 22 degrees here. And we can't turn on the heaters, folks, because they make a noise.
Yeah. We're fine.
Now, why don't I give you my great big quilt coat? Want to?
No, it's fine.
You look cold.
I'm fine.
You look cold. I'll give you my quilt coat.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
It's okay. We're fine.
let's keep going.
Because she's got a coat too.
Yeah.
So.
I'm good.
Yeah, she's got a nice black coat. So I've spent half of my life, you know, when tape started again. First it was 2-inch, I told you. Then they went down to 1-inch, and then they went down to the 3/4 inch cassette, which thread itself. That was wonderful because you always had to thread it by hand, you know. And then they went down to VHS. And then they went to 8mm, and then to Super 8mm, and then to Mini DV. And then all of a sudden they started talking about disc, DVD. Whoa, they were wonderful. The postage on a DVD is, you can send one for first class, 41 cents. A VHS was $1.49. So it helped a lot on the postage. But then, Vicki, now I have to tell you the latest development. And of course, Manhattan Neighborhood Network did such a great job going digital and invested so much money that they can't just overnight go from, well, they are dropping VHS. As of what date?
December 16th.
Oh.
Yeah, and then we'll let you know when we're going to DVD, but yeah.
That won't be for a long time because you've got so much invested in it. So it all sounded wonderful, but then the TV station started calling me up, and I'm on 60 of them, and they started calling me up and saying, we can't play DVD plus RW. We can't play DVD minus RW. Well, what can you play? Well, we're not sure. And and I've heard from East Hampton. I've heard from White Plains. One after another. We can't play it. Well, what can you play? Well, we think it's minus R. We can't play plus R. So they sort of have, at the moment, settled on minus R. I don't understand what's going on, do you?
Well, that's why we're waiting till we know exactly which DVD and which format and that we can actually accept. But it's mostly negative, just knowing from the video and film stuff I've done, minus R's.
Is that what you hear?
Yeah,
is that what you hear, minus R?
More universally, well, in this country.
Oh.
On DVD players and computers rather than the pluses.
Now, you can buy 100 minus at Walmart. Oh, something like $45, I believe. I just bought 2 of them. They're right down there on the floor. That's what I'm in the middle of doing right now. I'm doing 29 half of events that happen in October, November to be cablecast in December. Well, then Queens. I don't know whoever got how Sony did it, but they must have wined and dined and romanced somebody at Queens. I don't know if it was Nancy Littlefield or whether the board or whatever, but whatever they did, Queens went to Sony DV Cam.
Yeah, it's because of their decks. Mini DVs will break their decks, so that's why they use the DV cams.
DV cam shells are
the large.
Harder it could be broken.
And they're so costly.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And I don't. And a DV cam camera is in the range of like a couple $1,000s, isn't it? That's not public access stuff.
Yeah, the minis.
So I sued them.
The large shell. Oh. Yeah, they're really. This kind of defeats the. It does defeat the purpose for.
It did, and I sued them for that because it is a law in the state of New York, and I'll tell you the code. It's the New York Code Rules and Regulations, Title 18. 895, no, take it all back. Those are the public access laws, but that's not the ones I should have quoted. It's in the Public Service Law, Article 11, Section 229, that no cable operator shall limit or prohibit public access. And don't you see, Queens did that? And I told them that. Oh, no, they wouldn't listen. But you have done that, so I sued them.
Did you win that case?
Nope. Nope.
Hold on. There's some kind of weird light.
You want some gloves?
Yeah.
I got lots of gloves for your little hands.
Some kind of Okay.
That's okay for now.
All right.
What'd you want, sweetie? Anything I can get you?
I'm good. See that there. See if that's your nose. Can you lean forward a little bit?
Yeah, it's the light from the window.
Yes, this time of day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh! Can I go over to that door?
Don't trip. You'll reach.
I should know about this. I know what will help you. Little Sebastian, come in the house. You're freezing. Now, does that give you better light? I'll come back and sit down. Or is that worse?
It was fine how it was.
Do you want that lamp back on
Yeah,
again?
it was better before. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Light is so important.
I
Yeah.
know. Just maybe if you could move your chair back.
I don't think we want the door open, do we?
I think it's fine.
Can we close the door?
It was open before.
Yeah.
So just a little bit
move
longer.
your chair up, maybe.
Yep.
Maybe up.
Like all the way. Nope. Like a foot.
Oh, so stand up.
Yeah. Sorry.
And walk forward about 2 feet.
2 feet.
Yeah. There you are.
There.
Now sit down.
Back. I'm going to make sure we get our hands.
No, it's like right on her face.
With 350 half a month.
350.
And
Yeah, 350.
where are they all go? How many?
Well, they are all of Long Island, the 5 boroughs of New York City, all of Westchester County, all of Dutchess County, and Putnam County. Putnam County is between Westchester and Dutchess, and Columbia County is very well covered, and 2 in New Jersey, Trenton, Comcast, and Cablevision, Bergen County. Springfield, Massachusetts, Manchester, New Hampshire, Houston, Texas, Portland, Oregon, Los Alamos, New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Buffalo, New York, Albany, New York. Oh, the big one is DC TV. Public access in the District of Columbia. Oh, anytime that you want to go down and see that great operation, I can arrange it through my friend down there, George McDermott. And I'm very friendly with those people, and they would love to see you.
Okay. Yeah, that could be something that maybe we could do.
Yeah, the 2 of you, wouldn't you have a great fun driving down Penny's car down
Yeah, I know. Maybe she'll let us.
down to Washington, D.C.
So just a real quick question, going back to when you were first asked to get off of Long Island Cablevision.
Not asked to get off, told I
They
was.
were told to get off.
Yeah.
Did you have that phone call on tape?
Oh, I do.
Would you be able to get me a copy of it? So that way when you're explaining the story, or is that like a legal?
Oh, no. Oh, no. No, it's public information. No, you're welcome to it, but I'm just thinking of the days it would take to disinter that from the record. All right, let me, oh, no, that won't happen. Let me cogitate that, okay?
Okay. That would be great, because I think that would be really, to describe to people watching the film or the video.
The Garga tape.
Yeah, to describe that, that
yeah, it is.
Happened, even though we believe you, but to hear his voice telling you that you're forced off would be really powerful.
Yeah.
So.
2 minutes.
So let's just change the tape.
Yeah, we're gonna just change the tape before we start another.
Okay. I told Lauren you'd have